All right, welcome everybody to the very last day of IS58. Well, there's one more day for presentations. I'm going to give a short talk on juiciness in games, and so it's kind of this catchphrase that gets tossed around a lot. But I think this definition here on the screen is actually a pretty good one. It's a catch-all phrase for things that make the game feel good to interact with. So like when you have Mario's head bump into a block, like it makes a sound like, and the block also kind of goes up a little bit. I don't know if you guys see that. Like even if you can't break it, if you're small Mario and you hit a block, it still goes up a little bit. And when Mario runs and turns, it kicks up a little bit of dust. And when you stomp on a Goomba, it makes very satisfying squishing sound and things like that. That's like juicy. And so what I was saying is like today we had 4 or 5 presentations from students, one of which was a 2D game, and he was talking about how the game kind of felt flat because like when you fall and hit the ground, there's no sound. When you jump, there's no sound, and that makes the game feel very like bad. Like not bad, like you're getting an F kind of bad, but like it just doesn't. There's something missing. It doesn't feel right. And so what I was talking about before I started recording here, like if you play an instrument, right? Like I was learning the Jurassic Park theme on the viola, and the first step you do is you get all the notes right. So you play, you play. Maybe you do it a measure at a time. Maybe you play the whole piece at a time. There's different ways of approaching memorizing the notes, but eventually, you play it enough times, you get the notes down, right? And you can play it. But you're not ready for a performance yet. That's just the minimum that you need is to be able to play 100% of the notes 100% of the time, right? That's just the minimum. And a lot of students, like myself included, were like, okay, we're done. I was able to play through the song without error one time, and it's like, no. Like you have to play, that's not even like at the end of the first step. You have to play it through without error consistently, right? Because errors leap out at listeners, right? And so there's a very relevant parallel to game design there, which is like if your game is like 95% right, but if it just crashes 5% of the time, your game is actually unplayable. Or like every time somebody runs into a wall, it just crashes. Like it's just that's an unplayable game, right? The minimum you have to have is your game working, without crashing like 100% of the time or very close to it. And then after you get like the notes memorized, after you have like the framework, once you have that sort of what they'll call like a vertical slice sometime, and that's really what you guys should be working on with your projects for the 75% of you that haven't finished it yet. Is I'm not looking for like 5 levels, that are fully fleshed out. I'm looking for what's called a vertical slice, where you've got your I don't know what game you're making, but like a weapon and like a goal and like the ability to pick up a key and open a door and whatever, like just a working segment of the game. And once people agree that that works, then you kind of like expand it out, but you're still not done. There's another pass you need to do on it to make it juicy. Okay, and so juicy is it a useful game design term? Some people object to it, um, but really you just need to add those little flourishes to it, and that's what's oftentimes called like polish in a game. And so if you're actually going to release something on Steam and things like that, once you get your game done, you're like, yes, I'm finally done. And the answer is like, no, you're not done. You're not done at all. Now comes the hard part. You're like, well, I thought the hard part was done, and actually, yeah, the hard part is done. But like the next phase begins. You're like, oh, it's like one of those video games where you defeated the final boss, and then the final boss is like, you have not yet seen my final form, and it like mutates into another boss. Now you got the polishing phase, right? And so you get the full cover of the Bill Kearney of singing it. We are dinosaurs. We are dinosaurs. Something like that. Okay. It feels like it'd be a final draft, your rough draft. Yeah, you can die happy now. So yeah, my wife invented lyrics for the whole Jurassic Park theme. So sorry you sidetracked the final lecture, man. It's good, man. Like because this is actually a good point to mention that because like you guys are all coming down to the finish line, and like in reality, this would be like a great place to start demoing your code. You think you're done, but this is actually just like when you start doing like an alpha and you demo your code, you get feedback from people. And before you even do an alpha, before you put it up on Steam early release, you have your friends play it, you know, and you've got we got what 8 people online right now besides me. Just send it to them and be like, yo, could you play my game and give me some feedback and what's missing from it, you know? And when you do, and if any of you guys are serious about this, you know, remember the contact information of the people here and just ask them, see if anyone wants to try out their game, try your game, right? And then you start polishing, right? And so there's a number of things to look for, and the let's see, I can probably pull up a page. Polish, not Polish, polish. So, I think I unplugged my tablet. This cable's like 9 feet long or something ridiculous. Look at that. So, no, my tablet's screwed up again. All right, forget about it. Just use text. All right, so what kinds of things should you do during polish? Well, add little puffs of smoke, landing sounds, gasping sounds, like if you're swimming, you know, if you're underwater for a while, you hit the surface. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like a gasping sound? Like if you guys ever played a game where you know, you swim underwater and then you hit the surface, making you sad knowing it's going to be the last lecture through Science 50p. And like I said, I'm gonna make this repeatable. Too early to be getting sappy. Oh, I'll miss you guys. Yeah, you guys have been a really fantastic class. I really mean that. The sound of the character swallowing oxygen even when you're swimming. Yeah, so like it's not exactly realistic, right? Like people go, you know, every time you surface. Gasping sounds, or like the sound of like bursting out of water sounds, sword drawing sounds, like you guys all know the sound that a sword makes when you draw it out of a sheath, right? Shink, right? You have to figure out a daycare situation. You can take it online next fall if you want. There's also, I think, daycare on our school, Megan. I think we have like what they call the CDC, which I always thought had something to do with the Centers for Disease Control, but I guess is the Child Development Center, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, it was quite confusing to me. Like everyone would just use CDC and never actually say, they're like, I'm going to send my 5-year-old to the CDC. I'm like, they have anthrax or something? Like, what's going on here? You know? All right. Yeah, so swords actually don't make a shink sound when you pull them out. If you're doing that, you're scraping probably metal off your sword every time you pull it out of the sheath, right? But it's a trope, it's a convention, right? And so all of these like little details, like add the little details, you know, that make a game enjoyable to play. In between animations, so that you transition smoothly from one animation to another. There's a lot of work here, and that's easily as amount, maybe not as much work as building an entire game, but there's a lot of work that goes into this. Some of this, you know, we can just collapse into something called Foley. Anyone know? Have we talked about Foley before this semester? So Foley is one of the most hilarious jobs to have in the world. It was named after a guy named Mick Foley, who is a professional wrestler. No, I'm kidding. But it was actually named after a guy named Foley, just not the pro wrestler. Foley artists have one of the most amusing jobs ever. Like legitimately, they have a fun job. So they make the little sound effects and footsteps and sounds of, you know, a hamburger hitting the ground, like, you know, and what they do, and they're employed in both the video game industry and the film industry, is they'll take like a wet rag and like throw it against the ground and record it, and then they'll play that with the hamburger hitting the ground, and they're like, no, it's a little too wet and slappy, you know, and so they ball it up, and they just sit there, and they have like all these like toys, like I don't know if, you can see these things, tiles and pottery, broken debris, and they'll go and like they'll like shake like shards of pottery, and like it sounds like, I don't know, like whatever it sounds like, it doesn't matter, because in the video game or in the movie, it's like the person slams a drawer open, like, you know, your silverware drawer, and like all the silverware goes like this. That might very well be the sound of like people shaking like the broken debris, you know, together, you know, or something like that, right? And so they will sit there and step on things and record, like it's the most hilarious like thing to watch. Like they've got, you know, they'll just beat, like they got like a knife like hitting a pan, and it's not for cooking. Maybe it could just be like, the sound of like raindrops on a metal roof, you know, and they might be like hitting a knife on a frying pan, trying to simulate that sound. Like one guy I know, he needed the sound of like the engines engaging in like Top Gun or something like that, right? It's like that the Top Gun intro. Yeah, there you go. So like that sound, like you guys can hear that sound right now, right? Right? Like when you see this image here has sound attached to it in your brain, right? So that, you never watched Top Gun? Well, you can imagine it, right? Like, you know, any sort of plane taking off with a giant flame coming out the back of it, right? Um, the that sound was actually a microphone held inside of a toilet. Hit flush, record the, run it through some audio filtering effects. Next thing you know, you have, this really, you know, this super, hyper aggressive, plane taking off sound. It's literally a toilet flushing, right? So, or some of the dinosaur eating sounds created by a terrier playing with a chew toy, I believe it. But a lot of times it's not even like the thing that is the thing. Like sure, a dog eating a bone could be used for a dinosaur eating something, but a lot of times, like when you hear like Foley, it has like the actual behind the scenes thing. Like this could be the sound of a dinosaur eating a something. Like, they sit there and they have all these weird toys, and they'll just sit there and jingle them together, and like I don't even know what's happening here, right? Like you can just see this is a Foley. They have all these different like surfaces, and they have all these weird belts with bells on them, and they swing them around. It's the most wild career like ever. Like if I was an artist, I would want to be a Foley artist. Like it just seems like a lot of fun, because you have to sit there and just think creatively every day, and just be like, all right, I'm gonna take a tarpaulin here, and I'm gonna like poke sticks into it, and that sound is gonna be the sound of dinosaurs pushing up against a plastic barrier or something like that. Top 10 job, yeah, for sure. How do you get that job? I don't know, apply for it. You probably want to take like Max's digital audio class and things like that, because what they do is they like I don't even know what's happening here, right? Like I don't even, like it's a bicycle that I don't know what's happening, and they have a guy with a microphone, and they're like, and sure, they might be filming the sounds of bikes, but this very well could be the sound of like a factory, and so you're in a industrial factory, and so the sounds you hear from the factory are actually just a upside down rusty bicycle that they're pedaling, and then they record it and then they filter it, so you have to have pretty good digital audio editing skills, which I don't have. So like when I was asked to do the soundtrack for a video game that just came out last week, I sort of potatoed on it, not because I couldn't do the recording, but because I don't have the skills needed to mix and remaster things, which is kind of sad. So I need to talk to them and see if the soundtrack deal is still on the table. So they wanted sea shanties, right? So I recorded a bunch of sea shanties. It's just a matter of mastering them so they don't sound like complete garbage. It's got some coconuts here for horses, like literally, like in Monty Python, they have they're making like the riding sounds of horses. They actually do use coconuts for horses. I learned this at the WB tour the other day. So step one, find weird noises from everyday items, record noises, add them to stuff you wouldn't expect. Yeah, that's basically it. And so it's a very creative job, right? Because you just have to sit there and be like, no, okay, I need to make the sound of a skyscraper falling, you know. Okay, what do we have here? You know, and you maybe start banging things together, and you know, like okay, I'll get some cardboard boxes and step on those, and you know, it's like it's just hilarious. So adding Foley to your game is definitely part of the polishing step. Like every single one of these screenshots is just highly amusing to me. Like, are you guys on board with me? Like, I don't even like what like is that like a like she has like a pair of high heels and some boots and like a bucket with like pieces of wood in it and like people playing music in the background. What the hell is happening here? Like, I don't even know. It's amazing though. You just have like giant sheets of like it's just I don't know. It just super amuses me. Like every shot I've ever seen of Foley artist, like he's on a step ladder for some reason, pouring water through a colander into a plastic bucket and recording it. You know, like why is he on a step ladder? Like, does that help? Like, I don't know. Anyhow, so Foley is like the sound of footsteps on concrete versus grass versus snow. You know, like they'll typically have different footstep sounds, right? When you're walking on different surfaces for a good game, right? Like they'll actually have different crunch, 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 right? Imagine somebody walking around with a crab leg duct taped to a piece of wood and having to explain, "This is my job. I hit pieces of yeah." Um, elevator being like every minor bit of sound is usually Foley. And then you get into like things like ADR and things like that, like which is like the so there's like automated what's it automated digital replacement of lines. It's like, you know, I was telling you guys earlier that I was at the place where the Upside Down Kiss was filmed in Spider-Man, which is also the place where Purple Rain's cover shot was. And he couldn't talk during the upside down scene because water was dripping up his nose because he's upside down, and so his words were all garbled and he was getting waterboarded by the set, and so they had to ADR his dialogue to make it all romantic and cutesy and things like that. He was actually quite miserable in it. I get paid for holding a microphone in a toilet. Yeah, exactly. So, and so ADR like is the you can re-record dialogue and mix it in things like that. What else? Usually want your animations cleaned up. That's like getting transitions between animations right is tricky. In Unreal, there's blend spaces, but also sometimes you have to have an actual animation for like looking over your shoulder and then reversing and things like that. What else? Like game balance, right? And this is something that Mr. Bell and I used to do when he was my TA. Is students would present their game, and then we would like talk about the game balance of it. Like, all right, are any of the options you must do? Are any of the options you should never do? If so, they're bad options, right? And so we would sit there and, you know, students in this class used to have to make board games. And so we'd go over the rules of the board games and see if there was any degenerate strategies that would always win if the game is just luck based or something like that. So you want to be the person who gets paid for watching people make video games? like a professional Twitch, meta Twitch. I don't know. You stream people streaming games. I don't know. You hate what? The people that watch Twitch. I don't really understand the point of watching streams by and large. But be the CEO of a game company, yeah. That's right. No broken win mechanisms, yeah. If there's always a strategy that helps you win, then that allows you to win, then it's just a bad game. Yeah, game balance is especially hard in multiplayer, especially when you have skilled people and unskilled people playing with each other. And so usually having some options for unskilled people, like engineers in Team Fortress, right? You don't need to be able to aim. You just have to be able to slap down a turret, and the turret will shoot people for you. It's something you can do if you're terrible. Like you can be a medic if you're terrible, right? You just run around like healing people. It's like that's one of the things that Team Fortress 2 does right. It doesn't require everybody to have pixel perfect aiming, right? If you do have that, then play a sniper and you'll do fine. But like if you don't have great aiming skills, like you can play the heavy weapons guy and it shoots in a cone, right? You can be the medic and it will leash your healing to them, so you don't have to again have pixel perfect, aiming. And so multiplayer is especially hard to get right. Halo, for example, like the most recent Halo Infinite, has had massive, I don't want to say scandals exactly, but like problems, like ongoing problems with their matchmaking and game balance and things like that. Where it's just um, a lot of people just think it's not fun as a result of their matchmaking system, right? So, you're not the only game dev terrible at their own game that struggles with balance. Yeah, no, definitely not. Like, there's actually a lot of game developers that don't play games, right? Like, they just are in it for the money. Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you're in it for the money, you shouldn't be in game development. Is my take. But there is money in game development. I'm fairly sneaky. Um, yeah. So, what else as far as yeah, like map flow. That's another one. Make sure people aren't getting lost or getting stuck, right, on your map. A lot of times, if your map looks the same in two different parts of the map, then people can get disoriented. Like you go through a quarter and then you're in another quarter, it looks the same as the previous quarter. And as long as you're running through it linearly, you're fine. But like if there's combat and you're like getting turned around, then it's like, wait, which way do I go? Do I go? And then you find yourself back at the map entrance. Have you guys ever done that in a game? Or like you're like, okay, I'm proceeding onwards, and then you're like, oh, this is the beginning of the map. Oh, shoot. And then you have to like turn around and run back the other way. Originality with map design. Yeah, originality. That's a good one too. But mostly it's like the flow. Like the maps should feel good. Length actually kind of matters too. Like I quit playing Persona 5, which most people agree is a masterpiece of a game. I quit playing it because of the UFO level, which was just so long and so boring and so tedious that I just I just can't do this anymore. Like this is such a boring level. And the puzzles are so boring, and you have to just constantly get more key cards and run the key card from point A to point B, and then there's more mandatory fights in between. And I'm just sitting there like just beating my head into the table, like, oh, please make it stop, please. And then you have to leave the dungeon, and you have to come back into the dungeon, and it's like, oh, yeah. So, the McDonald's Dude Palace. That's right. Yeah, the burger, UFO burger, or whatever it's called. Yeah. Now, Futaba's Palace was like the Egyptian themed one. That one was okay. Like I had fun in that one. Yeah, Persona 5 is too slow for me. Like it really is. Like I liked a lot of it, but just it's a really time consuming game and it plays very slowly, and I get very impatient doing it. You unironically fall asleep to it, yeah. It's like you know, you have to sit there and do your like daily tasks, and you know, on Tuesdays you have to go in and work the flower store or something like that. It's like, yeah. So I just bought Royal Edition, so I'm gonna try and like see if I can muster the time to play it maybe over winter break. So it's the same game, but I heard the UFO level got better. So, but I'm I'm gonna lose all of my hours put into it already, making my Pokemon or whatever they're called spirits with more hours. Great, yeah, like they added a new semester or something. I mean, if I get 100% Cyberpunk 2077, I can beat Persona 5. Personas, yeah, sorry. They're like Pokemon, right? Like you collect Pokemon, you like merge them together to make new Pokemon. Yeah, so the polish phase, and then, in general, you just want to playtest over and over again. Over and over and over. Playtest. You, your friends, maybe IS50A people, then alpha test, then early access it, beta test, and then a long ways down the line, you release. Okay. And you want to focus also on a vertical slice at a time. So you want to have all the different elements in your game, and then grow horizontally. So you want to have your map, your AI, your goals, your UE, everything in, and then later make more weapons, right? Add more maps and weapons later. And then, of course, you sometimes have to like come back and redesign things, right? Like, a map that has like a lot of vertical elements in it might convince you that you need some new power-ups or whatever to increase your jump height and things like that. But if that exists on an earlier level, then that might allow them to jump over a wall that they could not get over previously. And so it's not as clean as oftentimes you'd like. So having a good design at the beginning probably helps with that. But in general, though, you want to like get like one thing where they can kind of play the game and get a feel for it, and then you add more maps and more weapons and more monsters and things like that, and kind of expand it out until you get something good, and then you play test. They don't even tell you how to unlock it this semester. Pro tip: if anyone's going to play Persona 5 Royal, you have to become friends with a counselor. Oh my gosh, it just ends the game if you don't. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Good tip, Sam. Thank you. I could not. I would just delete the game. Like if I played 120 hours, it's like time for semester 3. Sorry, you can't play it. Bye bye. I would delete the game, like legitimately. That is absolutely brutal. You have to that's gated that way. Jeez. Communication with the community. Yeah, it's not exactly polished, but yeah, at some point, community. So make a Discord is the way that a lot of people do it now. Get some hype. Set up a game pre-release. I don't know what the exact term is on Steam. So even before early access, you can have a game up on Steam, and so that will get some people wish listing it. You want to get the wish lists, get followers on Steam, bring them to your Discord, interact with them. There is a massive warning, though, which is that online communities are inherently at risk of being toxic. And by at risk, I mean are, but doesn't cost like $100 to publish a game on Steam. Yeah, whatever. $100. So the trouble with interacting with people is that a lot of people will have ideas of how your game should work that are different from your own. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes you're right, and sometimes nobody's right, and sometimes you're both right. And the game could just go in different directions, and it's really hard to it's hard to tell who is right sometimes um, when there's a disagreement on like game balance or something like that, right? Game developers oftentimes think they know better because they made the game, and a lot of times game players think they know better because they play the game a hell of a lot more than the game designers do. And it's something we see all the time in Path of Exile, right? Like the developers will be like, "Here's some new content. We think it's great," and then the community's like, "This is garbage," you know. And then who's right? I don't know. You know, it's like, and then they'll like tweak it and be like, "Here you go. Here's this new thing," and they're like, "No, it's still garbage." And then they, you know, and there's this like kind of back and forth between the two. And at some point, like you have to be able to just tell them no, like that's just a bad idea. Um, but at the same time, they can always just like not play your game anymore, right? So um, there's like in the forums for my game, you know, I would actually put up a poll like, "Hey, what do you think the biggest balance problem is in the game right now?" People are like, "Oh, you know, it's this weapon. This weapon is too OP right now." And then I'd look at it, look at the code, think about it, and then I'd propose like a couple different options. Like we can decrease the damage a little bit. We can add an item that if you carry the item, then then you take less damage from that weapon. We can prevent it from slowing your movement down because that seems to be a big annoyance. Like people hate moving slower. But that's also kind of part of the weapon design. So you know, it's all throw up some options, and then they'll vote on it, and then I'll implement it. And most people are happy at that point because I've listened to the community and talked to the community. And then there's always people who get upset because nerfs make people upset. It's just how it is. If you have a weapon that is OP and you nerf it, people will get mad. It's just a fact of life because they play with the best weapon. Like it's just a fact of life that gamers will find the optimal combination of things and choose it. And now they can't choose it anymore, and and that makes them mad because you've taken something away from them, right? Loss aversion. So like, if they don't nerf stable, I'm going to rage quit, and that's the problem, right? It's like it's not fun when you're playing Team Fortress and people can capture the flag in 5 seconds. They fly across the map at the speed of sound, grab the flag, fly back, and in the time that it takes you to walk to your flag room, they've captured the flag 3 more times. It's like that's not very fun for everybody else, and so you that's what I'm saying. Like it's like when you nerf something, the people that do that are going to get mad, but you have to balance that with the fact that like most people are like bloop, bloop, like what's going on here? Why no, this isn't fun, you know? And so it's one of those things you just have to learn to deal with. And that's one of the reasons why I did the polls. I was like, do you think you know, let's do a poll. Do you think we should leave in the ability to capture the flag in 5 seconds? And then you know, 10% of people will vote yes, 90% of people vote no. It's like, okay, well, if you think no, what change should we make? Should we slow down people? Like, should we cap max speed? Should we cap the maximum speed when you got the flag? Should you move at half speed when you have the flag? Should we, you know, turn off bunny hopping? And people are like, no, don't turn off bunny hopping. That's an important skill-based part of the game. Bunny hopping, if you guys don't know, it's like you'll see people skipping through the world like this, and because you're not on the ground, you don't have the friction slowing you down, and so there are tricks you do like diagonal running, which makes you run faster than if you run forward because you get your horizontal velocity and your vertical velocity at the same time. So moving it, so you turn sideways and move at a diagonal, and you actually move faster than if you're moving forward. And you jump and you run up against a wall, and then that converts your diagonal velocity forwards. And there's all these like skill-based tricks you can do to move faster. And they're like, no, don't change that because that's like a skill-based part of the game. It rewards skilled players. I'm like, okay, that's fair enough, you know. But tap strafing, yeah. And so it's like, all right, so what do we do? Like, you guys don't want, because what was happening is people were bunny hopping across the map, and they were doing these physics-based tricks to boost their speed. And because they're skipping through the world and not having friction, they could just accelerate to basically infinite speeds, right? And so the eventual thing that we did was like you can't bunny hop if you have the flag, basically, or like if you have the flag, basically you try doing this, you can kind of bunny hop, but you can't move at like the speed of light. Like you can just move fast, but there's sort of like a cap on it or some. I don't remember the exact implementation detail, but the upshot was like you could fly across the map at the speed of light and get the flag, but then coming back with the flag, you were sort of much slower and kind of just at human speeds instead of hypersonic speeds. And so it worked pretty well, actually. It actually fixed the problem. It rewarded people for still having skill. You can still get across the map very quickly, which is half of your capture time. Defense could kill the people that, because people playing defense want to be able to shoot the person, not, you know, like, you know. So defense can actually shoot the people carrying the flag. Everybody was happy except for the people that were capturing the flag, and they were mad, of course. And so, you know, because I could capture the flag 10 times in a minute, and now I can't. It's like, yeah, I know, that's the point. But when you have a poll, and here's my point, when you have a poll, you'd be like, look, the community voted on this, and you can like kind of wash your hands of it, like, hey, I put this up for you guys, and 90% of people said it's a problem, and here's the solution that was voted on. So here you go. It's not my fault, you know. And so you can kind of like toss it back at the community, and so they can't get mad at you. It's like they get mad at the community instead, and then you know, and ultimately that boils down to you being known as a developer that listens to people, right? Is kind of what it comes down to. Like you listen to your fan base and interact with your fan base. You always have to be pleasant to them too. Like even if you want to tell somebody that they're full of it and kind of a moron or whatever, like you can't. Like when you're a developer, you always have to be a gentleman or a gentlewoman, you know, and always present your best attitude towards them and be very supportive and kind and things like that, even if you think they're a moron or a troll or something like that. Developers that get into arguments and these like flame wars with their fans very quickly don't have fans anymore because they just end up coming off as a jerk. So that's basically where I'm going to end the semester, I think. Yeah, so after you got your game finished over winter break, so you can throw some polish on it, you know, see if you can make it look nice. And rule number one of being a game dev: don't talk to the fans. But you got like that's the thing, like especially when you're an indie developer, like you have to, like you don't have community managers, you know, and things like this that handle the fans for you. And even then, community managers are oftentimes horribly toxic individuals themselves, and they make you look bad. So so you need to talk to the fans, and you always have to be polite to them and listen to the feedback, and sometimes you have to tell them no, like, yeah, this is going to change. Like, I don't want there to be 5-second captures, you know. But usually, you know, there's kind of like a back and forth where like you can toss out ideas and people will give you the feedback on it, and some of them will tell you suck, you know, like you're not good at your own game, and it's like, okay, whatever, you know, like you just have to always be polite and pleasant to them. So thanks, yeah, bye. No, yeah, no, you just, you know, it's part of the process. Like if you want to be successful as an indie developer, you have to have the ability to interact with your fans and grow a community, you know. Like the indie games that do really well tend to be those that have a very positive relationship with their fans. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much. I hope to see all of your projects on Thursday, and have a crush-tastic day. Peace.